The chamber was larger than any structure ever built by human hands. It stretched upward into darkness, its walls made of something that looked like frozen starlight. Floating platforms held representatives from species that had been traveling between stars when humanity was still learning to make fire. Ambassador Daniel Reed stood at the center of it all, alone on a circular platform that hovered above an endless void. His heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his face calm. Around him, arranged in rising tiers that disappeared into the shadows above, sat the rulers of the galaxy. The Galactic High Assembly had governed known space for 40,000 years. Every major species answered to them. Every trade route, every colony world, every military fleet operated under their authority. They had crushed empires and erased civilizations from existence. And today, they had summoned humanity to answer for its crimes. The being who spoke first was called the Supreme Arbiter. He was Mordakian, a species of giants with skin like polished bronze and eyes that burned with inner fire. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder rolling across mountains. You stand accused, human. Your species has violated the sacred laws of this assembly. You have committed acts of war against member states. You have interfered in matters beyond your authority. How do you answer? Daniel looked up at the towering figure. The Mordakians had conquered 300 worlds before humanity discovered electricity. They had never known defeat. They had never faced a species that refused to kneel. I would answer, Daniel said, his voice steady, if I knew what crime we are supposed to have committed. A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. Whispers in 1,000 languages filled the air. No one spoke to the Supreme Arbiter with such casual disregard. A creature of crystalline light, the Valanthi delegate, flickered with anger. You deny knowledge of your own actions? The destruction of the Mordakian patrol fleet? The invasion of restricted space? The theft of protected technology? I deny nothing, Daniel replied. I simply ask which specific incident you wish to discuss. There have been so many. The chamber fell silent. The Supreme Arbiter leaned forward, his burning eyes narrowing. You mock this assembly, human? No, I simply refuse to be intimidated by it. Daniel took a step forward on his floating platform. Every eye in the chamber watched him. For 200 years, humanity has tried to be a good member of your galactic community. We followed your laws. We respected your boundaries. We asked permission before we expanded, before we traded, before we breathed. And what did we receive in return? He let the question hang in the air. Restrictions, limitations, denial of basic rights that every other species takes for granted. We were told we were too young, too primitive, too dangerous to be trusted with full membership. We accepted this. We were patient. His voice hardened, but patience has limits. The Mordakian Supreme Arbiter rose from his throne. He stood nearly 4 meters tall, a mountain of bronze flesh and burning fury. You dare lecture us? You, whose species has existed for barely a heartbeat of cosmic time. We were building empires when your ancestors cowered in caves. Yes, Daniel said quietly. You were. And in all that time, in all those thousands of years of power and conquest, you learned nothing. Explain yourself. You learned to dominate, to control, to crush anything that might challenge your authority. But you never learned the most important lesson of all. Daniel looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from 100 different species. You never learned what happens when you push someone too far. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small device. Throughout the chamber, weapons powered up, shields activated, guards moved forward. But Daniel simply pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared in the air before him. It showed a star map. Hundreds of points of light scattered across a section of the galaxy. These are Mordakian military installations, Daniel said. Shipyards. Weapons factories. Command centers. 247 locations, built over thousands of years. He pressed another button. Half the lights went dark. These are the ones that no longer exist. The Supreme Arbiter's face contorted with rage. You admit to acts of war against the Mordekian Empire? I admit to defending ourselves against a species that has been secretly preparing to invade Earth for the past 50 years. Another murmur swept through the chamber. The Valonthi delegate's crystalline form flickered rapidly. That is a serious accusation, human. Do you have evidence? I have more than evidence. Daniel pressed another button. The holographic display changed, showing detailed plans, communications intercepts, fleet movements. I have everything. Every order. Every strategy session. Every calculation of how many humans would need to die to ensure our complete subjugation. He looked up at the Supreme Arbiter. You are never going to give us a chance. You decided decades ago that humanity was too dangerous to exist, too unpredictable, too creative. You saw how fast we advanced, how quickly we adapted your technology, and you were afraid. We fear nothing, the Mordekian snarled. Then why did you build a fleet of 12,000 warships, specifically designed to overwhelm Earth's defenses? Why did you position them in staging areas just outside our sensor range? Why did you coordinate with 6 other species to attack simultaneously from multiple directions? The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted accusations and denials. The Supreme Arbiter's burning eyes swept across the assembly. Trying to identify who had leaked the information, Daniel waited for the noise to die down. You wanted to know what crime humanity has committed, he said. Here is our crime. We discovered your plan. We refused to die quietly. And we struck first. He smiled, and there was no warmth in it. The fleet you built to destroy us? Half of it is already gone. Your staging areas? Rubble? Your supply lines? Severed. While you were preparing to exterminate humanity, we were preparing to survive. The Supreme Arbiter's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You have started a war you cannot win, human. The combined might of this assembly will crush your insignificant species. Perhaps, Daniel acknowledged. You have numbers we cannot match, resources we cannot imagine, history we cannot comprehend. But you're missing something crucial in your calculations. And what is that? Daniel looked directly into the Mordekian's burning eyes. You've never fought anything like us. Every species you've conquered, you overwhelmed with superior force. They calculated the odds, saw they couldn't win, and surrendered. That's rational. That's logical. That's what any sensible civilization would do. He paused. Humanity isn't sensible. We don't surrender because the odds are against us. We fight harder. We get creative. We find ways to win that no one thought possible. It's in our nature. We can't help it. Pretty words, the Supreme Arbiter sneered. But words won't stop our fleets. No, Daniel agreed. But while we've been having this conversation, something else has been happening. Something you should probably know about. He pressed another button on his device. Throughout the chamber, screens activated on every platform, showing live feeds from across the galaxy. Mordekian installations burning, warships disabled and drifting. And on dozens of worlds, subject species rising up against their masters, armed with weapons that had mysteriously appeared in their hands. You thought you were fighting one species, Daniel said. You're fighting everyone you've ever conquered, everyone you've ever oppressed, everyone who has spent centuries waiting for someone to stand up to you. He spread his arms, encompassing the chaos displayed on every screen. We didn't just prepare to defend ourselves. We prepared to set the galaxy on fire. The Supreme Arbiter's face twisted with fury. This assembly will destroy you for this. Every human world will burn. Maybe, Daniel said, but you'll burn with us. And something tells me that's not a price you're willing to pay. He stepped back on his platform. This assembly has 48 hours to recognize humanity as a full member with all rights and protections, to withdraw all military forces from our territory, and to release every species currently held under Mordakian subjugation. If these conditions are not met, he let the sentence hang unfinished. You'll do what? The Supreme Arbiter demanded. Daniel smiled again. And this time, there was something terrifying in it. You have 48 hours to decide if you want to find out. The platform beneath him activated, carrying him away from the center of the chamber. Behind him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy stared in stunned silence at the human, who had just threatened them all. And somewhere in the void of space, 12 Mordakian colony worlds watched their suns begin to flicker. Held hostage by weapons they never knew existed, the war for humanity's survival had begun. 40-8 hours passed. The Galactic Assembly did not accept humanity's terms. Instead, they declared total war. The announcement came from the Supreme Arbiter himself, broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Humanity was declared a threat to all civilized species. A coalition of 11 major powers pledged their fleets to the cause of human extinction. No negotiation, no mercy, no survivors. On Earth, in the buried command center beneath the Swiss Alps, Commander Helena Voss watched the declaration with cold eyes. Around her, officers from every major nation worked at their stations, coordinating the defense of their entire species. How long until their fleet arrives? She asked. 14 hours, her tactical officer replied. They're coming through 3 different jump corridors. Approximately 30,000 ships total. 30,000. Against humanity's fleet of roughly 2,000 combat-capable vessels. The math was simple. The math was terrifying. And our preparations? Complete, Commander. The Lazarus Protocol is ready for activation. Helena nodded slowly. The Lazarus Protocol. Humanity's final contingency. A plan so desperate that even suggesting it had seemed like madness a year ago. Now it was their only hope. Send word to Ambassador Reed. Tell him to return to Earth immediately. We're going to need him for what comes next. Across the solar system, the preparations intensified. On Mars, underground factories worked around the clock, producing weapons and ammunition. In the asteroid belt, mining stations transformed into fortress positions. Around Earth itself, a network of defense platforms powered up, each one capable of destroying a small fleet. But it wouldn't be enough. Everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. The enemy fleet emerged from jump space exactly on schedule. They came like a wave of metal and fire, thousands of warships arranged in perfect formation. Mordakian dreadnoughts led the assault, massive vessels bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Behind them came the ships of their allies, each species contributing their deadliest technology to the cause of human extinction. Admiral Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance, humanity's flagship, and watched the enemy approach. He was 63 years old, a veteran of conflicts that had seemed important at the time, but now felt trivial. Nothing in his career had prepared him for this moment. All ships hold position, he ordered. Do not engage until my command. The human fleet was arrayed around Earth in a defensive sphere. 2,000 ships against 30,000. There was no tactical formation that could overcome those odds. No strategy that could balance that equation. But Admiral Stone wasn't trying to win a conventional battle. The enemy fleet crossed the orbit of Mars, then the asteroid belt, then Jupiter. With each passing minute, they grew closer. With each passing minute, humanity's window of survival grew smaller. Admiral, His sensor officer reported, "The enemy is charging weapons. They'll be in firing range in 12 minutes. Understood. Signal all civilian vessels to begin evacuation to the emergency shelters." Across Earth, the final exodus had already begun. Millions of people streamed into underground bunkers, into hardened shelters beneath mountains and oceans. It wasn't enough to save everyone. It was barely enough to save anyone. But humanity refused to go gently into extinction. At 10 minutes to contact, Admiral Stone opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Stone. In a few minutes, we will face the greatest battle in human history. Many of us will not survive. But I want you to remember something. Every minute we hold them back is another minute for our civilians to reach shelter. Every ship we destroy is one less weapon pointed at our families." He paused, looking out at the stars filled with enemy vessels. "We are the last line. Behind us is everything we've ever loved, everything we've ever built, everything we've ever dreamed. They want to take it all from us. They want to erase humanity from the universe." His voice hardened. "Let's show them what a mistake that was." The enemy fleet opened fire. The space around Earth erupted in light and fury. Thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously, filling the void with beams of energy and storms of projectiles. Human ships responded, their own weapons finding targets in the incoming wave. The first Mardakian dreadnought died within seconds, its shields overwhelmed by concentrated fire from a dozen human vessels. But for every enemy ship destroyed, 2 human vessels were lost. The math was still wrong. The math was still impossible. Admiral Stone watched his fleet die around him. The courage went first, then the hope, then the resilience. Ships named for human virtues, crewed by human heroes, vanishing in flashes of nuclear fire. "Admiral," his tactical officer shouted, "we've lost 40% of our fleet. The defensive line is collapsing. Hold position. We need more time." "Time for what, sir?" Stone didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on a countdown timer displayed on his personal screen. 90 seconds remaining. The enemy pressed their advantage. Mordakian assault ships punched through the crumbling defensive line, racing toward Earth. Behind them, the main fleet advanced, sensing victory within their grasp. 60 seconds. The Supreme Arbiter watched from his command vessel, satisfaction burning in his ancient eyes. He had destroyed empires before. He had witnessed the end of 100 defiant species. Humanity would be no different. Humanity would be forgotten. 30 seconds. Admiral Stone's flagship took a direct hit. The bridge shook violently. Fires erupted across multiple decks. The tactical display flickered and died. "Sir, we've lost navigation. We're drifting." "It doesn't matter," Stone replied. He was smiling now, a strange expression given the circumstances. "We just needed to buy time. 10 seconds. Time for what?" 0. Across the solar system, the Lazarus Protocol activated. It began with the sun. Ancient probes, launched decades ago in secret, reached their positions within the solar corona. They weren't weapons in the conventional sense. They were something far more dangerous. They were transmitters. Humanity had never been able to match the raw power of the elder species. But they had one advantage their enemies didn't expect. They understood physics in ways the galaxy had forgotten to explore. The transmitters activated, creating a harmonic resonance within the sun's magnetic field. The effect was subtle at first. A slight fluctuation in solar output. A minor disturbance in the corona. Then the sun pulsed. A wave of electromagnetic energy swept outward at the speed of light. It was invisible to most sensors, harmless to life, devastating to technology. Every ship within the inner solar system felt the impact simultaneously. Navigation systems failed. Weapons went offline. Shields collapsed. The enemy fleet, arranged in perfect formation, suddenly found itself blind, deaf, and helpless. Admiral Stone's backup systems came online. Humanity had prepared for this. Humanity had hardened their technology against exactly this effect. All ships, he broadcast, weapons free. Take them apart. What followed would be remembered as the Massacre of Sol. 30,000 enemy vessels, unable to maneuver or fight back, were systematically destroyed by a human fleet that had seemed on the verge of defeat moments before. The Mordakian dreadnoughts, pride of a 1,000-year empire, burned in the darkness. The Supreme Arbiter's command ship was among the last to fall. Stone made sure of that. He wanted the ancient creature to watch his entire fleet die before facing his own end dot when the Defiance's main guns finally reduced the Mordakian flagship to expanding debris. Admiral Stone felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. And beneath the exhaustion, cold resolve. How many did we lose? He asked quietly. 1,100 ships, sir. More than half our fleet. 1,100 ships. Tens of thousands of human lives. The price of survival. And the enemy? Total losses. None escaped. Stone nodded slowly. They had won the first battle. But he knew, as everyone knew, that this was just the beginning. The Galactic Assembly had 11 major powers. This fleet represented only 2 of them. More would come. Larger forces. Better prepared. Send a message to command, he ordered. Tell them we're still here. Tell them to prepare for Phase 2. On Earth, in the buried command center, Commander Voss received the report. Around her, officers cheered, embraced, wept with relief. Humanity had survived its first test, but Voss didn't celebrate. She was already looking at the intelligence reports, the fleet movements, the diplomatic communications intercepted from across the galaxy. The Assembly was reeling from their defeat. Species that had pledged support were reconsidering. Old rivalries were resurfacing. The coalition that had seemed so unified was showing cracks. Ambassador Reed arrived at her station, still wearing his diplomatic uniform from the Assembly confrontation. It's not over, he said quietly. They'll come again. I know, Voss replied. But now they know we can fight back. Now they have to wonder what else we're capable of. And what are we capable of? Voss turned to face him, and her eyes held something that made even the experienced diplomat pause. Whatever it takes, she said. Whatever it takes to ensure humanity survives. Outside, the sun shone peacefully on a world that had just survived its closest encounter with extinction. But in the darkness of space, new fleets were already being assembled. New plans were being made. The galaxy had learned that humanity could win battles. Soon, they would learn what happened when humans went on the offensive. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy had changed, the Mordakian Empire. Once the most feared power in known space had fractured. 3 of their subject species had declared independence. 2 more were in open rebellion. The fleet they had lost at Earth had been the backbone of their military, and without it, their grip on their empire crumbled. But the war was far from over. 9 major powers still stood united against humanity. Their combined fleets numbered in the hundreds of thousands. And they were learning from their mistakes. In the rebuilt command center beneath the Alps, a war council was in session. Commander Voss stood at the head of the table, surrounded by the leaders of humanity's military forces. Ambassador Reed sat beside her, his face drawn with exhaustion from months of diplomatic warfare. They've adapted, Voss said, pointing to the holographic display floating above the table. Their new ships are hardened against electromagnetic pulses. The Lazarus Protocol won't work twice. Admiral Stone, his arm still in a regeneration cast from injuries sustained at Sol, leaned forward. Then we need a new approach. We need more than that. This came from Dr. Amara Okafor, head of Humanity's Strategic Intelligence Division. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. Our defensive victory bought us time, but it also terrified them. They're not going to stop until we're extinct. That's not negotiable for them anymore. Then what do you suggest? Reed asked. Okafor smiled grimly. We do what they never expected. We stop defending. We attack. The room fell silent. Attack where? Stone asked. We've got 3,000 ships left. They have hundreds of thousands. We don't attack their fleets, Okafor replied. We attack their foundations. The coalition against us is held together by fear and mutual interest. Take away either, and it falls apart. She pressed a button, and a holographic display changed, showing a complex web of connections between the allied species. Each of these powers has enemies, old grudges, unresolved conflicts. They've put them aside to fight us, but the resentment is still there. And some of them are starting to wonder if they made the right choice. You want to turn them against each other. Reed said slowly, I want to offer them a better option than annihilation. Okafor highlighted several points on the display. The Velanthi have been junior partners in this coalition from the start. The Cravathi joined only because they feared being conquered if they didn't. And the Vesuri have been secretly communicating with us for months, offering intelligence in exchange for future protection. You've been running operations without authorization. Voss said flatly, I've been keeping us alive. Okafor met the commander's eyes without flinching. We can't win a war of attrition. We don't have the ships, the resources, or the time. But we can win a different kind of war. A war of information, of influence, of carefully applied pressure. Stone shook his head. Spycraft won't stop their fleets from coming. No, but it might mean fewer fleets come. And for the ones that do, Okafor smiled again. I have another idea. 2 weeks later, a small human fleet jumped into the Valdorian system, deep in the heart of Coalition space. The Valdorians were weapons manufacturers, suppliers of advanced technology to 3 major powers. Their orbital factories produced more military hardware than any other species in the region. And they had almost no defensive fleet of their own. Captain Nathaniel. Frost stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, watching the Valdorian homeworld grow larger on the display. His ship was new, built in the frantic months since Sol, incorporating every advancement humanity had made and a few they had borrowed from captured enemy technology. Captain, his sensor officer reported, the Valdorians are hailing us. They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our intentions. Open a channel. The main screen flickered, showing a Valdorian official. They were insectoid creatures, multi-limbed and compound-eyed, their voices a buzzing chorus translated by computer. Human vessels, you have entered sovereign space. This is an act of war. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Frost leaned back in his command chair. Destruction by what? Your 3 patrol craft? Your orbital defense platforms that we disabled 2 minutes ago? The Valdorian's compound eyes flickered with what might have been fear. The Coalition will respond. You will be. The Coalition is 3 days away at best. We're here now. Frost's voice was calm, almost casual. And we're not here to destroy you. We're here to make you an offer. What offer could you possibly make? The same one we've made to 4 other species in the past 2 weeks. Neutrality in exchange for survival. The Valdorian paused. You want us to withdraw from the Coalition? I want you to stop building weapons for people who want to exterminate my species. In return, we don't reduce your factories to rubble and your economy to ruins. Frost smiled thinly. We're actually very reasonable when we're not being hunted. The Coalition will punish us. They will. The Coalition is busy. Frost pressed a button, sending data to the Valdorian screen. This is a live feed from the Caesarian border. That's a Mordakian fleet fighting in the Sari fleet. That other engagement is Velanthi ships attacking Kravathi supply lines. The Coalition you're so afraid of is tearing itself apart. The Valdorians stared at the data. How is this possible? Because humans are very good at finding weaknesses, very good at exploiting them, and very good at convincing people that their real enemies aren't the ones they've been told to hate. Frost leaned forward. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, we demonstrate what happens to those who choose the wrong side. 53 minutes later, the Valdorian government announced its withdrawal from the Coalition. Their factories would produce no more weapons for the war against humanity. In fact, they offered to sell their output to anyone willing to pay, regardless of species. Humanity had struck its first blow, and across the galaxy, other species began to wonder if they had chosen the right side. On Earth, Dr. Okafor watched the reports come in with satisfaction. Operation Fracture was proceeding exactly as planned. 3 species had already withdrawn from the Coalition. 2 more were in secret negotiations. And the internal conflicts she had carefully cultivated were spreading faster than anyone had expected. The Mordakians are furious, Ambassador Reed reported, entering her office. They're threatening to attack anyone who withdraws from the Coalition. Let them threaten. They don't have the ships to follow through. Okafor pulled up another display. More importantly, the Kravathi ambassador has requested a meeting. Off the record. He wants to discuss terms. The Kravathi are one of the founding members of the Coalition. If they withdraw ... the Coalition effectively ceases to exist. Okafor nodded. Which is exactly what we want. And then what? Even a fractured galaxy still has species that want us dead. Then we give them reasons not to. Okafor's eyes were hard. We've spent 200 years trying to prove we're not a threat. It didn't work. Time to try a different approach. Time to prove that being our friend is more profitable than being our enemy. Reed shook his head slowly. You're talking about building an empire. I'm talking about building an alliance. A real one, based on mutual benefit rather than mutual fear. She looked at him. We can't go back to being ignored. We can't go back to being dismissed. The only way forward is to become too valuable to destroy and too dangerous to challenge. Some would say that makes us no better than the Mordakians. The Mordakians built their power on conquest and terror. We're building ours on trade, technology, and the simple principle that we don't start fights, but we always finish them. Okafor stood, walking to her window. We didn't ask for this war, but since it's been forced upon us, we're going to win it. And when we do, the galaxy will be different. Better, because we'll make it better. Reed was silent for a long moment. And if we fail? Then humanity dies. Okafor's voice was quiet. But at least we'll die fighting. At least we'll die on our own terms. And at least we'll take enough of them with us that they'll never forget we existed. Outside, the sun was setting over the mountains. Somewhere out there, human ships were striking targets across the galaxy. Human diplomats were making deals that would reshape interstellar politics. Human soldiers were fighting battles that most of Earth would never hear about. The war for survival had become something more. A war for position. A war for the future. And humanity was winning. But in the darkness of space, in a hidden location known only to a few, the remaining Coalition powers were meeting. Their fleets were diminished. Their alliances were crumbling. But they still had one card left to play, a weapon older than any of their civilizations. A weapon that had been used only once before, 10,000 years ago. To end a war that had nearly destroyed the galaxy, they had sworn never to use it again. They were about to break that oath. The intelligence came from a dying Kravathi officer. captured during a skirmish in the Outer Territories. His name was Travos, and he had been loyal to the Coalition until a human medic saved his life when his own people had abandoned him to die. "They call it the Silence," he whispered, his voice fading as Dr. Okafor leaned close to hear. "It was built during the First War, before any of the current powers existed. A weapon that can sterilize entire star systems. Kill every living thing within light years." Okafor felt ice spread through her chest. "Where is it?" "Hidden in the void margin beyond charted space." Trevos's compound eyes dimmed. They swore never to use it again. The devastation was too complete. But your species has pushed them to desperation. They're going to activate it. How do you know this? Because I was part of the team assigned to find it. His breathing became labored. I couldn't be part of that. Not after what your people did for me. Not after seeing that you're not the monsters they told us you were. He pressed a data crystal into her hand. Everything I know. The location. The activation protocols. The weaknesses. His eyes met hers. "Stop them. Please. If that weapon fires, it won't just kill humans. It will destroy any hope that the galaxy can ever be different." Trevos died 3 minutes later. Okafor stood over his body for a long moment, the data crystal clutched in her hand. Then she ran. The emergency council convened within the hour. Commander Voss, Admiral Stone, Ambassador Reed, and a dozen other leaders gathered around the war table, their faces grim as Okafor presented her findings. "The Silence was created by a species called the Precursors," she explained, projecting Trevos's data onto the display. "They ruled the galaxy before the current Elder Powers. When their subject species rebelled, they built this weapon to crush the rebellion. It worked too well. The Precursors themselves were destroyed in the aftermath, along with half the life in the galaxy. And the current powers kept this weapon hidden for 10,000 years? Reed asked. Why not destroy it? Because they're not capable of destroying it. The Precursor technology is beyond anything they can understand, let alone dismantle. All they could do was hide it and hope no one would ever find it." Stone leaned forward. "If they activate this weapon against Earth... everyone in the solar system dies. Instantly. The effect propagates at faster than light speeds. There's no warning, no defense, no survival." Okafor's voice was flat. "Our victory at Sol, our diplomatic successes, our military operations, none of it matters if they have this." Voss studied the data for a long moment. "Can we reach it before they activate it?" "The location is in the void margin, 3 weeks at maximum speed. According to Trevos's information, the activation team arrived 6 days ago. They're still preparing the weapon, calibrating it for human biological signatures. We might have 2 weeks, maybe less. Then we send a fleet. Through Coalition space? They'll see us coming. They'll accelerate the timeline." Stone shook his head. "A small force, then. Strike team. Fast ships, minimal signature." Okafor nodded. "That was my recommendation as well. But there's a complication." She changed the display, showing the defenses around the Silence's location. "The Coalition has stationed a battle group at the void margin to protect the activation team. 50 ships, including 2 dreadnoughts. Any strike team will have to fight through them to reach the weapon. Then we make sure they're the best we have," Voss said. "Who leads it?" "I was hoping you'd ask." Okafor looked at Stone. "Admiral, I need the Vengeance. And I need Captain Frost." Frost was not enthusiastic about the mission. "You want me to take a single ship through Coalition territory, fight through a battle group of 50 vessels, land a team on an ancient alien superweapon, disable it before it can destroy Earth, and then escape through the same 50 ships I just made very angry?" "Yes," Okafor said simply. You realize that's impossible. I realize it's our only option. She met his eyes. If we fail, everyone dies. Everyone, Captain. Every human being on every world we've ever touched. There is no backup plan. There is no alternative. This is it. Frost was silent for a long moment. I'll need volunteers. Real ones, not people who feel obligated. You'll have them. I've already put out the word. Every soldier on Earth wants a piece of this mission. And the ground team? Who's going to actually disable the weapon? Okafor smiled grimly. That would be me. The Vengeance departed Earth 3 days later, carrying a crew of 200 volunteers and a ground team of 20 specialists. They traveled in silence, running dark through the spaces between stars, avoiding coalition patrols through a combination of skill, luck, and intelligence provided by their new Thessari allies. On the 12th day, they reached the void margin. The region was well named. Beyond the boundaries of charted space, the stars grew sparse and cold. Ancient suns guttered in the darkness, their light too weak to warm the dead worlds that circled them. It was a place of emptiness, of endings. It was the perfect place to hide a weapon of genocide. I have the station on sensors, Frost's tactical officer reported. The silence is built into an asteroid approximately 300 kilometers in diameter. I'm also reading 52 coalition vessels in defensive formation around it. Any sign they've detected us? Not yet. But if we get any closer, then we make it count. Frost opened a channel to the entire ship. All hands, battle stations. This is what we came for. I won't lie to you. The odds are against us. But we're not fighting for odds. We're fighting for everyone we've ever loved. Everyone who's counting on us. Everyone who'll never exist if we fail. He paused, looking around his bridge at the faces of his crew. I've never been prouder to serve with anyone. Whatever happens today, remember that. Now let's show these alien bastards what humanity can do. The Vengeance dropped its stealth systems and accelerated toward the coalition fleet at maximum speed. Alarms erupted across 52 enemy vessels. Weapons powered up. Fighters launched. All weapons fire at will. Focus on the dreadnoughts. The battle was chaos from the first moment. The Vengeance was the most advanced ship humanity had ever built, but it was still one vessel against 52. Frost didn't try to win through firepower. He won through movement, through prediction, through understanding his enemies better than they understood themselves. The coalition ships were used to fighting in formation, supporting each other, following established doctrine. Frost fought like a cornered predator, striking from unexpected angles, using asteroids and debris as cover, drawing enemies into each other's lines of fire. The first dreadnought died when Frost led a squadron of fighters on a chase through an asteroid field, then detonated a nuclear mine in their path. The second died when he crashed a disabled coalition cruiser into its bridge, but the Vengeance was taking damage. Systems failing. Crew dying. Time running out. Dr. Okafor, Frost called over the internal comm. You need to launch now. We can't hold them much longer. The insertion window isn't open yet. Make it open. We'll clear a path. The Vengeance turned toward the asteroid, housing the silence, weapons blazing. 3 coalition destroyers moved to intercept. Frost destroyed 2 and crippled the 3rd. Go. Now. Okafor's shuttle launched from the Vengeance's belly, racing toward the asteroid. Coalition fighters moved to intercept, but human gunners picked them off one by one. The shuttle reached the asteroid's surface, its landing gear tearing grooves in ancient rock. We're down, Okafor reported, moving to the entrance. Understood. We'll keep them busy up here. Okafor and her team fought their way through the asteroid's interior. The defenses were automated, ancient systems that had survived 10 millennia of darkness. 3 of her people died in the first corridor, 2 more in the second. They reached the Silence's control chamber with only 8 survivors. The weapon itself was beautiful in a terrible way. A sphere of perfect blackness, absorbing all light, all energy, all hope. Consoles surrounded it, their displays showing targeting data. Earth's coordinates, Earth's population, Earth's death sentence. The Coalition's activation team was there, working frantically at the controls. They turned as Okafor's team burst in, reaching for weapons. The firefight was brief and brutal. When it was over, Okafor stood alone among the bodies, her team dead around her. She was wounded, bleeding from a dozen places, but she was standing, and she was the only one left who could stop the weapon. Trevos's data had included the deactivation sequence. Theoretically simple. Practically, it required inputting a series of commands in an alien language. Using controls designed for creatures with 6 limbs and compound eyes, Okafor had 5 minutes before the weapon reached critical activation. She got to work. In orbit, the Vengeance was dying. Frost had lost half his crew and most of his weapons. Coalition ships surrounded him, pounding his shields into nothing. Captain, his XO reported, blood running down her face, shields at 12%. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We can't take much more. Just a little longer. Frost watched the timer on his display. 4 minutes until the Silence activated. Or 4 minutes until Okafor succeeded. Just a little longer. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. 1 minute. The Silence went dark. A pulse of energy swept outward from the asteroid, harmless but unmistakable. The weapon had been deactivated. The threat was over. Frost slumped in his chair, exhaustion and relief washing over him in equal measure. This is Captain Frost to all Coalition vessels. Your weapon has been neutralized. Your fleet is crippled. And reinforcements are on their way. He was bluffing about the reinforcements. But they didn't know that. I recommend you withdraw while you still can. The Coalition ships hesitated. Then, one by one, they began to retreat, jumping to fold space, vanishing into the darkness they had come from. The Vengeance hung alone in the void, broken and bleeding, but victorious. Get me a shuttle, Frost ordered. I need to pick up our people on that asteroid. They found Okafor unconscious at the base of the Silence, her hands still on the controls. She had lost too much blood, suffered too many wounds. But she was alive. As the medical team loaded her onto the shuttle, Frost stood before the ancient weapon that had almost destroyed his species. It still hummed with power, dormant but not dead. What do we do with it? His XO asked. Frost considered for a long moment. We take it with us, he said finally. Humanity has been threatened with genocide twice now. I think it's time we made sure it never happens again. The XO's eyes widened. Sir, that's insurance. Frost turned away from the Silence, walking back toward the shuttle. Pray we never have to use it. But as the Vengeance limped back toward Earth, carrying humanity's darkest prize, Frost knew the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity was no longer the victim. Humanity was now the power that others would learn to fear. The news of the Silence spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every species, every world, every government learned that humanity now possessed the most devastating weapon in existence. The same weapon that had once destroyed half the life in the galaxy was now in human hands. The reaction was immediate and extreme. The Coalition collapsed overnight. Species that had been committed to human extinction suddenly discovered urgent reasons to negotiate. Governments that had denounced humanity as barbaric monsters now sent frantic messages requesting diplomatic meetings. The great powers of the galaxy, who had ruled unchallenged for millennia, found themselves facing a terrible new reality. They had created the very thing they feared most, A species with nothing to lose and everything to gain. A species that had proven it would fight to the last breath rather than surrender. A species that now had the power to end civilizations with a single command, and humanity had no intention of letting that power go to waste. Ambassador Daniel. Reed stood once again in the great chamber of the Galactic Assembly. But this time, he was not standing alone on the accused platform. This time, he stood at the center of a human delegation, flanked by military officers and diplomatic staff. And this time, the representatives of the elder species looked at him with something new in their eyes. Fear. "You have called this assembly together," the Valanthe delegate said carefully, her crystalline form dim and subdued. "State your purpose." Reed smiled. It was not the desperate, defiant smile he had worn a year ago. This was the smile of someone who held all the cards and knew it. "I have come to dictate terms." A murmur swept through the chamber. The Mordakian representative, a lesser official since the Supreme Arbiter had died at Sol, rose to his feet. "You dare to threaten this assembly? We will not be intimidated by—" "Sit down." Reed's voice was quiet, but it cut through the chamber like a blade. The Mordakian hesitated, then slowly returned to his seat. "Let me be clear about something," Reed continued. "We didn't want this war. We didn't seek it. We didn't provoke it. For 2 centuries, we tried to be peaceful members of your galactic community. We followed your rules. We respected your authority. We did everything you asked." He paused, looking around the chamber. "And you decided to destroy us anyway. Not because of anything we did, but because of what we might become. You looked at humanity and saw potential. And instead of nurturing that potential, instead of welcoming us as partners, you chose to stamp it out." His voice hardened. "That was your choice. Now you face the consequences." He activated a holographic display, showing the silence in its new location, a heavily defended facility in the heart of human space. "Yes, we have the weapon. Yes, we could use it against any species that threatens us. But that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to threaten genocide. I'm here to offer something better." The display changed, showing a document filled with dense text. "This is the framework for a new galactic order. Not an empire. Not a hierarchy. An actual community of equals. Every species, regardless of age or power, will have a voice. Every world will have protection. Every civilization will have the right to grow, to trade, to explore, without fear of conquest or exploitation." The Valanthe delegate leaned forward. "And humanity? What role would your species play in this new order?" "The same role as everyone else. One voice among many. One vote in the assembly. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We never did. We just wanted to live in it. You expect us to believe that?" The Mordakian demanded. "After everything that's happened? After everything you've done? I expect you to believe evidence." Reed pulled up another display. "In the past 6 months, humanity has liberated 14 species from Mordakian subjugation. We've established trade agreements with 23 worlds on equal terms. We've shared technology without demanding tribute. We've defended those who couldn't defend themselves." He looked directly at the Mordakian. "What have you done in that same time? Crushed rebellions. Executed dissidents. Threatened neutral species who refused to support your war. You've spent millennia proving that you only understand force. So yes, we have a weapon that ensures you'll never threaten us again. But we're not you. We never wanted to be." The chamber was silent. "There is one condition," Reed added. "Non-negotiable. Name it. The species currently held under subjugation by the elder powers will be freed. All of them. Immediately. They will be given the resources to rebuild their civilizations and the protection to ensure they're never conquered again." The Mordakian's face contorted with fury. You ask us to surrender everything we've built over thousands of years. I'm asking you to stop being monsters." Reed's voice was calm. "You have a choice. Accept these terms and join a galaxy where no one has to fear extinction at the hands of their neighbors. Or refuse and watch everything you've built crumble around you. Without your subject species, without your conquered worlds, without the tribute and resources you've extracted for millennia, how long do you think your empire will last?" He spread his hands. "This isn't conquest. This is justice. Long overdue, but finally possible." The vote took 3 days. 3 days of negotiation, argument, threats, and counter-threats. But in the end, there was only one possible outcome. The elder species had no leverage left. Their fleets were broken. Their alliances had shattered. And hovering over every discussion was the knowledge that humanity could end them all with a single command. The new charter was ratified by a vote of 11-1. Only the Morgakians refused, still clinging to dreams of empire that had died at Soldot. It didn't matter. Their empire collapsed within months, former subjects rising up to claim independence, former allies turning away from a power that had nothing left to offer. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for weeks. Humanity had not just survived, they had transformed the galaxy. The species that had almost been exterminated was now one of the founding members of a new interstellar order. The future that had seemed impossible was now within reach, but not everyone was. Celebrating Dr. Amara Okafor stood on a balcony overlooking Geneva, watching the festivities below. Her wounds had healed, but the scars remained. Physical and otherwise. Commander Voss found her there, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "You should be down there," Voss said, offering her a glass. "You're a hero. Heroes don't feel like this." Okafor took the glass, but didn't drink. "Do you know how many people died to get us here? How many ships? How many soldiers? How many alien lives, fighting wars we started? Wars they started. Wars we escalated. Wars we spread across the galaxy." Okafor shook her head. "I'm not sorry we survived. I'm not sorry we won. But I'm not sure I'm ready to celebrate." Voss was quiet for a moment. "I understand. I feel it too. But consider this." She gestured to the crowds below. "A year ago, those people were preparing to die. They were saying goodbye to their families, making peace with the end of everything they knew. Now they're celebrating because they have a future, because their children will grow up in a galaxy where humanity isn't hunted, because everything we sacrificed meant something." She raised her glass. "We didn't just save humanity, Amara. We changed the galaxy. For the better. That's worth something." Okafor looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she raised her own glass. "To those who didn't make it." "To those who didn't make it," Voss agreed. "And to making sure their sacrifice wasn't in vain." They drank together, watching the lights of celebration spread across the city below. Far away, in the depths of space, a new human colony ship was approaching its destination. Not a world claimed by conquest, but one offered freely by the Thesari. Grateful allies in a galaxy that finally had room for friendship. Captain Frost, recovered from his injuries, but bearing his own scars, stood on the observation deck as the planet came into view. It was a green world, rich with life, waiting to be shaped by human hands. "What will we call it?" His XO asked, standing beside him. Frost considered for a moment. "Hope," he said finally. "We'll call it Hope." "Fitting."